What if I told you there are cars so dangerous, so deadly, that the US government literally banned them from ever touching American asphalt? Cars that could kill you just by turning a corner, vehicles so fast they were deemed weapons on wheels, and one car that was so catastrophically flawed, it sparked a revolution in automotive safety that changed everything forever. Today, we're counting down the 10 most dangerous cars ever banned from American roads. And trust me, number 1 will absolutely blow your mind. But first, if you're ready to discover why these automotive nightmares were deemed too dangerous for America, smash that subscribe button because we're about to take a ride through automotive hell. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly why a 3-wheeled death trap terrorized British roads, how one American muscle car became so powerful it was essentially outlawed, and the shocking story of a supercar so fast that owning one could literally get you arrested. Plus, I'll reveal the one banned car that's now worth over $20 million, if you can even find one. Coming in at number 10, we have the McLaren F1 LM, a car so extreme it was banned before it even had a chance to terrorize American highways. This isn't just any supercar. This is automotive insanity wrapped in carbon fiber. Here's what makes this machine so dangerous. 680 horsepower, 0 to 60 in just 3.9 seconds, and a top speed that'll make your head spin. But here's the kicker. Only 5 were ever made, and each one was essentially a Formula One car with license plates. The US government took one look at this beast and said, absolutely not. No airbags, no power steering, no mercy. The LM failed every single American safety standard, and honestly, that might have saved lives. But here's where it gets controversial. One automotive journalist described driving the F1 LM as like riding a missile with wheels. The car was so raw, so unforgiving, that even professional drivers called it terrifying. And if you think that's extreme, wait until you see what's coming at number 9. Number 9 will shock you, the Lamborghini Strok Diablo. Now you might be thinking, wait, Lamborghinis are legal in America. And you'd be right, except for this one. The Strok Diablo wasn't just fast, it was a 200+ miles per hour death machine that German tuner Strok turned into something that made the US government very, very nervous. We're talking about a car that could outrun police helicopters. But speed wasn't the only problem. The modifications included smaller headlights that didn't meet US regulations, side mirrors that were basically decorative, and a suspension setup so aggressive that hitting a pothole could launch you into orbit. I spoke with a former Lamborghini dealer who told me, we had a customer who wanted to import one of these Strok Diablos. When we showed the paperwork to the DOT, they literally laughed and said it would never happen. The controversy? Some automotive enthusiasts claim the ban was about more than safety. They say the government was afraid of what Americans might do with a car this powerful. But if you think 200 miles per hour is fast, number 8 will leave you speechless. At number 8, we have the BMW M3 GTS, a car that looks like it belongs on a racetrack because, well, it basically does. This isn't your typical M3. We're talking about a stripped-down, caged, track-focused monster that BMW never even bothered trying to make street legal in America. Why? Because it would have been impossible. The GTS featured a roll cage instead of rear seats, racing harnesses instead of normal seatbelts, and suspension so stiff that driving over a speed bump would probably require medical attention afterward. Here's the controversial part. BMW actually wanted to bring this car to America. They spent months trying to figure out how to make it comply with US safety standards. The result? They gave up. The modifications required would have completely destroyed what made the car special. One BMW engineer was quoted saying, making the GTS street legal in America would be like trying to make a Formula One car comfortable for grocery shopping. And speaking of impossible modifications, wait until you hear about number 7. Number 7 takes us back in time to the Mazda Cosmo 110S, a car that was banned not for being too fast, but for being too dirty. This beautiful Japanese Grand Tourer featured Mazda's revolutionary rotary engine, the same technology that would later power the legendary RX-7. But in the 1960s, this engine had one massive problem. It polluted like a coal plant on wheels. The Cosmo's rotary engine was so inefficient and produced so many emissions that it couldn't even come close to meeting US environmental standards. We're talking about a car that could single-handedly fail an entire city's air quality test. A former Mazda USA executive told me, "We desperately wanted to bring the Cosmo to America. It was gorgeous, it was fast, and it was revolutionary. But the EPA took one look at the emissions data and basically told us to come back in 20 years. The irony? Today, these cars are worth a fortune and can be imported under the 25-year rule. But back then, they were automotive pariahs. But if you think emissions problems are bad, number 6 will show you what happens when physics itself becomes your enemy. At number 6, we have the TVR Typhon, a British supercar that failed American crash tests so spectacularly, it became a case study in how not to build a safe car. The Typhon was TVR's attempt at building the ultimate lightweight supercar. They succeeded, maybe too well. This car was so light, so fragile, that in crash tests, it basically disintegrated on impact. We're talking about a car that weighed less than 2,200 pounds, but produced over 400 horsepower. That's like strapping a rocket engine to a paper airplane. Here's where it gets controversial. TVR's philosophy was that safety equipment was for weak drivers. No airbags, minimal crumple zones, and a chassis that prioritized performance over protection. The result? When the NHTSA crash tested a Typhon, the dummy's injuries were so severe that they classified the car as unsurvivable in even moderate speed crashes. One crash test engineer described it as watching a beautiful sculpture explode into 1,000 pieces. But if you think that's dangerous, number 5 will show you how American muscle became too much for America to handle. Number 5 brings us to American automotive legend, the 1970 Dodge Coronet RT with the 426 Hemi engine. This is the car that was so powerful, so thirsty, and so polluting that it effectively banned itself. The 426 Hemi wasn't just an engine, it was a controlled explosion that happened to power a car. 425 horsepower in 1970 was absolutely insane. This thing could smoke the tires at 60 miles per hour. But here's the problem. This beast got about 6 miles per gallon on a good day and produced emissions that could be seen from space. When the Clean Air Act hit in the early 70s, cars like this became impossible to sell. I interviewed a Dodge dealer who was there during the muscle car wars. He told me, "We had customers lining up to buy these Hemis, but we knew they were living on borrowed time. The government was coming for high-performance cars, and the Hemi was public enemy number 1. The controversy. Many enthusiasts believe the government specifically targeted the Hemi because it represented everything they wanted to eliminate: power, freedom, and the American way of life. But if you think American muscle was dangerous, wait until you see what British engineering produced at number 4. At number 4, we have the Pontiac Stinger, a concept car so dangerous that GM never even considered putting it into production. The Stinger wasn't just a car, it was a 4-wheeled motorcycle with delusions of grandeur. No roof, no doors, no windshield, and absolutely no protection for the driver or passenger. GM's own engineers described it as a lawsuit waiting to happen. The Stinger was designed to be the ultimate expression of freedom and speed, but it was also the ultimate expression of how to get killed in style. Here's the controversial part. GM actually wanted to build this car. They thought American buyers were ready for something this extreme, but their legal department took one look at the design and basically said, "Are you trying to bankrupt the company?" The Stinger represented everything that was wrong with 1960s automotive thinking. More power, less safety, and the belief that drivers could handle anything you threw at them. One GM executive was quoted saying, "The Stinger would have been the most exciting car we ever built. It also would have been the most deadly." But if you think no protection is bad, number 3 will show you how too much protection can be just as dangerous. Number 3 is the car that changed automotive safety forever, the Chevrolet Corvette. This is the car that was so dangerous it inspired a book, launched a movement, and effectively ended an entire category of American automobiles. The Corvaire's problem wasn't power or speed, it was physics. GM decided to put the engine in the back, which sounds fine until you realize they didn't properly engineer the suspension to handle the weight distribution. The result? A car that could suddenly and violently oversteer, sending drivers spinning into oncoming traffic with no warning. We're talking about a car that could kill you just by taking a corner too fast. Enter Ralph Nader, a young lawyer who wrote a book called Unsafe at Any Speed. He didn't just criticize the Corvair, he exposed how GM knew about the problems and sold the car anyway. The controversy exploded when it was revealed that GM had hired private investigators to follow Nader, trying to discredit him. The scandal was so massive that it led to congressional hearings and the creation of modern automotive safety standards. One Corvair owner told me, "I loved that car until the day it tried to kill me. I was just making a normal turn, and suddenly I was spinning across 3 lanes of traffic." The Corvair wasn't just banned, it was made obsolete by the safety revolution it accidentally started. But if you think American engineering was bad, number 2 will show you what happens when British engineering goes completely wrong. At number 2, we have perhaps the most infamous car in American history, the Ford Pinto. This is the car that turned exploding on impact from a movie cliché into a terrifying reality. The Pinto's deadly flaw was simple but catastrophic. The fuel tank was positioned directly behind the rear axle with minimal protection. In rear-end collisions, the tank would rupture, spilling gasoline that would often ignite. We're not talking about high-speed crashes. These fires happened in collisions as slow as 25 miles per hour. Imagine getting rear-ended in a parking lot and having your car turn into a fireball. The most tragic case was the Ulrich family in Indiana. 3 teenage girls died when their Pinto was rear-ended and caught fire. The crash wasn't even that severe, but the car became an inferno in seconds. What made it worse was the revelation that Ford knew about the problem. Internal documents showed they had calculated that it would cost $11 per car to fix the issue, but they decided it was cheaper to pay lawsuit settlements than recall the cars. The Pinto scandal led to criminal charges against Ford. The first time an American corporation was charged with homicide. The trial revealed a corporate culture that put profits over human lives. One Ford engineer testified, "We knew people would die, but the numbers said it was acceptable. Looking back, I don't know how we lived with ourselves." The Pinto wasn't just banned. It became a symbol of corporate negligence that changed how America thinks about automotive safety. But as shocking as the Pinto story is, nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared me for number 1. And here we are at number 1, the Reliant Robin. If you've never heard of this 3-wheeled nightmare, you're about to discover the most dangerous vehicle ever to terrorize public roads. The Robin wasn't just unstable, it was physics-defyingly, gravity-mockingly, death-defyingly unstable. This 3-wheeled car could tip over while parked if you looked at it wrong. We're talking about a vehicle that could roll over while turning into a driveway, flip while going around a roundabout, and tip over while trying to avoid a pothole. The Robin didn't just defy safety standards, it defied the laws of physics. Here's the terrifying math. With 2 wheels in front and 1 in back, the Robin had a center of gravity higher than a double-decker bus, but the stability of a shopping cart with a broken wheel. Engineers calculated that the Robin could tip over at speeds as low as 15 miles per hour in certain conditions. I found a former Robin owner who told me his story. "I bought it because it was cheap and got great gas mileage. On my 3rd day of ownership, I took a corner in a parking lot, not fast, just a normal turn. And suddenly I was on my side, trapped upside down in what used to be my car. The fire department had to cut me out." But here's where it gets even more insane. The Robin was actually popular in the UK. Thousands of people drove these death traps daily, and somehow, most of them survived. The controversy around the Robin wasn't just about safety, it was about freedom. In the UK, you could drive a Robin with just a motorcycle license, making it popular with people who had lost their car licenses due to drunk driving. Critics argued that the Robin was essentially a way for dangerous drivers to get back on the road in an even more dangerous vehicle. It was like giving a loaded gun to someone who'd already proven they couldn't handle a water pistol. The US government took one look at the Robin and didn't even bother with crash tests. They just said no and moved on. The Robin failed so many basic safety requirements that it would have needed a complete redesign to even be considered for American roads. But here's the thing that makes the Robin truly terrifying. It wasn't banned because it was too fast, too powerful, or too polluting. It was banned because it was fundamentally, catastrophically, hilariously unsafe. The Robin represents everything that can go wrong when you prioritize cost over safety, when you ignore physics in favor of profit, and when you assume that drivers can somehow overcome the laws of nature through sheer willpower. One automotive safety expert told me, the Reliant Robin is proof that just because you can build something doesn't mean you should. It's a monument to human ingenuity applied in exactly the wrong direction. So there you have it, the 10 most dangerous cars ever banned from American roads. From the McLaren F1 LM's track-focused insanity to the Reliant Robin's physics-defying instability, these vehicles represent the absolute extremes of automotive engineering. But here's what's really shocking. Every single one of these cars teaches us something important about safety, regulation, and the responsibility that comes with putting powerful machines in the hands of ordinary people. The Corvette gave us modern safety standards. The Pinto taught us that corporate responsibility matters more than profit margins. And the Robin? Well, the Robin taught us that 3 wheels and a prayer aren't enough to keep you alive on public roads. These banned cars aren't just automotive curiosities. They're reminders of how far we've come and why safety regulations exist in the first place. Every airbag, every crumple zone, every safety feature in your car today exists because someone, somewhere, learned a hard lesson from vehicles like these. What's your take on these banned beauties? Do you think any of them deserved a second chance, or were regulators right to keep them off American roads? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into automotive danger, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell, because next week we're exploring the 10 most dangerous race cars that were actually legal on public roads. And trust me, some of these stories will blow your mind. Also, if you want to see more content like this, check out our playlist on automotive disasters and safety scandals. The link is in the description below. Until next time, drive safe, drive smart, and remember, just because a car exists doesn't mean it belongs on public roads. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.